The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. It's game time. This is The Game on News Radio KMAN.
The Kansas City Chiefs had a buyer's market when it comes to trading for a wide receiver. They could have gone with somebody younger, bigger, faster, stronger. But Brett Veach had a crush. And he's had this crush for quite some time. And that crush is DeAndre Hopkins, who has been in the league for over, a decade, 12 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
12th season.
A 5-time All-Pro. Over 1,000 yards last year, which, let's be honest, what does 1,000 yards in the NFL mean anymore in receiving? Call me when they get to 1,500 or 1,400.
Right.
But still, not too bad for the Kansas City Chiefs to only give up a 5th-round pick that if the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl and Hopkins plays 60% of snaps, that'll turn into a 4th-round pick. Not too bad for the Kansas City Chiefs to go make a move when they certainly needed to. And they pick up DeAndre Hopkins from the Tennessee Titans for a draft pick. Welcome to The Game. Mitch Fortner, Trey Coverdale, and AJ Shaw. We're with you until 6 o'clock. And coming up at 5:10, we'll be joined by Curry Sexton. Of course, it is Thursday, so we'll get his thoughts on the win over West Virginia. And he's a Kansas kid. He played in the Sunflower Showdown a bunch of times. And he'll get us pumped up and ready to go for the game on Saturday, which kicks off now. The official kickoff time is 7:05 from Bill Snyder Family Stadium and the 122nd edition of the Dillon Sunflower Showdown. One more win for the Cats, and the streak can now legally drive. We'll hear from offensive coordinator Conor Riley in this first hour. Defensive coordinator Joe Klannerman coming up at about 5:40. Plus, take a look at my offense and defensive keys for the Sunflower Showdown. And we'll preview the Jayhawks in hour number 1 in a little later, about 15 minutes from now, with Henry Greenstein. He is from the Lawrence Journal-World. AJ, was this a good trade for the Chiefs to go after DeAndre Hopkins at 32 years old? He's been a Titan for the last couple of years. The Titans, the passing game, not too good. What do you think about this trade for the Chiefs going after DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, they had no choice. I mean, they kind of needed a receiver. Rashee Rice is most likely out for the rest of the season. Hollywood Brown is out for the rest of the season. What's up, Trey?
I was going to go Cooper Kupp was going to be too expensive.
Yeah.
Well, but the thing is, okay, I'll add to what I was going after moments ago. And I was listing off, hey, you could have gone for somebody younger, quicker, bigger. Hopkins is 6'1". He's so good in coverage and those tight catches. And I think that's where he really excels. And, Mahomes is not a tight coverage thrower. He does not force too much in tight coverage. So we'll see if that changes at all. I'm very curious about that. But there's also guys with higher ceilings like a Cooper Kupp who I think would get for a couple of years if that trade were to happen.
Xavier Worthy's a rookie. He's shown some flashes, but he's not really a wide receiver 1 yet. You have Justin Watson, who was essentially your wide receiver 2. So they really had no choice. And you made the comment that Brett Veach has been really high on Nuke Hopkins for many years, going back to when Houston made that ridiculous trade of sending him to Arizona. He's been playing on a torn MCL, so you got to love his passion, but he's probably not going to bring you the same explosiveness that he's brought in previous years. This is not the same DeAndre Hopkins that he was 5 years ago.
No, but does he have to be?
No, he does not, but I'm getting to that. But he's.
It's the Chiefs' offense at this point.
But it definitely fills a need that needed to be held. And, hey, he wanted to be here, and he's a guy that helps your offense out substantially and gives Mahomes an additional weapon in a year that's seen a lot of injuries on the offensive side of the ball for Kansas City.
Mahomes needed some help, that's for sure, in the passing game. He has more interceptions than touchdowns right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
He has 8 interceptions and 6 touchdowns. They're coasting at best.
At this point, what he's got in terms of wide receivers is Xavier Worthy. I mean, literally, that's your, Justin Watson, okay. Sky Moore,
Oh, boy.
Chiefs
fans are done with him.
Yeah, McCole Hardman.
Yeah, too many injuries have added up for Kansas. Offensively, it's been bad. What do they have, 4 guys now on IR?
Xavier Worthy has essentially similar stats as Hopkins. 15 catches for 198 yards and 2 touchdowns. So about 25 yards more and an extra touchdown. So really, Worthy's got about similar stats as Hopkins, but you have to also end it in the fact that Tennessee has no quarterback. Will Levis is terrible.
Yeah, he's not good. Patrick Mahomes instead of Will Levis is going to be a major difference.
They almost wish that they had Marcus Mariota back.
Historic run right now for Kansas City. And the timing was super necessary, but you think where the Chiefs are at right now, it's pretty crazy. They have had, on paper, heading into the season, a tough schedule. I mean, right out of the gates was insane. Yet they're 6-0. They have a comfortable lead in the division. They should win their 9th straight. I think that should be very clear. And the defense is extremely suffocating.
Yes.
The offense hasn't needed to be its best. Not really close to being its best. But it's still a little surprising it hadn't been better when it was healthy.
It's crazy to think because you had L'Jarius Sneed, who they traded in the offseason because of cap issues, and everyone was like, oh, is their secondary going to take a step back? No, they've had these young DBs step up and really play big for them. And, their defense has been tremendous, and you got to give Spags a lot of credit for what he's done. But I think Hopkins helps. It's definitely going to help their offense, and you hope that Kelce can kind of get it together. He's had a decent couple of games lately, but he's not been Travis Kelce so far early in the season.
Well, and I think what I love the most about it is the price tag, a 5th-round draft pick, and I had heard that the Titans are still going to pay some of his salary on the move. So they're just basically unloading him?
So, yeah, essentially. I mean, they're going nowhere. They gave a lot of money to Calvin Ridley. He's been MIA. But, again, they have no passing game. Will Levis is terrible. They just went to Desmond Ridder last week. And Desmond Ridder, he's not much better.
It's been 3 or 4 years now that DeAndre Hopkins' name to become a Chief has been brought up.
Yes.
Multiple times. And that goes back to what I said previously. Brett Veach has been
eyeballing
really
him.
Eyeballing DeAndre Hopkins for a long time to be a Chief at some point. A cheaper investment than, of course, maybe he's not prime DeAndre Hopkins, but he's still super talented DeAndre Hopkins.
And the thing is, you have him for the rest of this season, and you can figure out the rest from there.
Well, I think the rest from there, as soon as this season is over, you're going to see a much different. I say much different. You're going to see a lot of different faces in that wide receiver room.
The end of this season, I think you're going to see a lot of different faces. This is going to be the end of what
are you saying? Travis Kelce's done after this year?
Yeah, not necessarily going there, but by the time you start to deal with the salary cap issues that they're going to begin to start to deal with, there's going to be a lot of changeover coming.
Yeah, you mentioned the cap. They've done a really good job of managing it the last couple of years. I mean, you look at what they were able to do. They were able to restructure Mahomes' deal several times to get Chris Jones back. They've done a pretty good job managing the cap, but he's right in that you also have guys you're going to have to pay. Next year, Isaiah Pacheco's contract's up. He's going to get paid. Yeah, running backs don't make the same money they made 10 years ago, but Isaiah Pacheco's a good player. He's a guy that's definitely going to be getting some money, But if Rashee Rice is able to come back by the postseason, Chiefs have a legitimate wide receiver duo there for the first time in quite a while there, at least in a few years since Tyreek Hill left.
All right, I want to pause the Chiefs talk for a little while here, probably for the rest of the show, to be honest with you, because it's K-State KU, right? I wanted to take a few moments as well this first segment and talk about Avery Johnson, if you don't mind. If you're out there driving, honk your horn if you think Avery's passing game has been a lot better lately. Hear any horns out there? I think I heard a few.
Just don't do it if you're driving around with people.
I probably maybe use my horn a little bit too much because especially if you're sitting at a red light, you're not noticing. I'm gonna give the old toot of the horn. Let's get moving here.
I know you're a pretty impatient driver, right?
Sometimes
toot of the horn and the finger number 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Patience, however, for Avery to improve. There's been plenty of that for me. I can say that. Took some heat after the BYU game, first time in his career. Boy, since that BYU game, I think you've seen a different Avery Johnson. I think it's for a number of reasons, but real quick, the last 3 games. Avery's averaging 260 passing yards, a total of 8 touchdowns, 9.6 yards per pass, 64% completion percentage. And in the last 3 games, which last year, there wasn't really much of an explosive passing game for K-State. Much better this year. The last 4 games and 2 in the last game, you're talking about passing plays of over 50 yards. So the offense is now more explosive. I love that against West Virginia, where I thought it was a nice step, and we're seeing more contribution from the wide receivers. 9 guys had a catch in this game. And 8 had 3 different times previous to that, and a couple in the last 3 games as well. Avery was just 2 yards shy of 300. He would have been the 3rd sophomore quarterback to do that ever. To throw for 300 yards in a game, and Josh Freeman, I believe, did it 3 times, and the other one would have been Carl Straw. I mean, Avery now has over 1,400 yards passing this season, and that passes Skylar Thompson. He's now 4th in a season by a sophomore. Here, a lot of reasons why he's been playing better as a passer. I'm going to just start listing them off. I think, of course, with the play calling, you're going to probably throw out some different looks that nobody has seen on film yet, so you can be a little bit more creative. I think Conor Riley has done an excellent job with his play calling. More wide receivers involved, and specifically going to shout out Jaden Jackson. He had the 2 catches against West Virginia. They were on back-to-back plays, but the last 3 games, 8 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown. The previous 3 games, 2 catches, 14 yards. Being used more as a weapon. Mm-hmm. He's made himself available, plus a lot of that probably has to do as well with how comfortable Avery Johnson has been. We have not seen a drop-off at the tight ends. It's just more quantity, not quality. I think they're all quality guys, but instead of one just, Ben Sinnott with the occasional, Garrett Oakley and Will Swanson, 4 tight ends have 2 touchdowns each. There's never been a tight end in K-State history to have 8 touchdowns in a season. It's just spreading it out, and you're using a lot more guys. To me, that's a lot of fun.
And it also speaks to the talent in that tight end room right now.
For sure.
Yes. It's interesting here. Cole Manbeck had a tweet out, and I know we retweeted it on the game Twitter account. Avery's made 8 starts, and he's already he's owns 4 rankings in the top 10 when it comes to QBR in the Kleiman era. The game against West Virginia, the Texas Tech game last year, the Pop-Tarts Bowl against NC State, and the Oklahoma State game. He's only made 8 starts, and already he's 4 times in the ranking, up there with Skylar Thompson and Will Howard in the Kleiman era. Pretty darn impressive for the kid.
Yeah, lately his QBR is through the roof. I believe he had the 2nd best in FBS, maybe not FBS. I think it was just Power 4 college football, but he had the 2nd best QBR against West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Let me add a few more things to this, and it's just him as a pocket passer. This may have not come natural to Avery Johnson, but he has listened. He has watched the film. He has learned from a few growing pains. From that first game or first couple of games this season to now, Avery Johnson is a much different person in that pocket. The offensive line did a phenomenal job against West Virginia. Shout out to Andrew Lane Gang. Everybody calls him Line Gang, but I'm pretty sure his name is Lane Gang. Coming in to play right tackle as a starter for the injured Carver Willis. Phenomenal job. Other than that one play, that was the only right. It was the 4th down and 5 that Avery did a phenomenal job of escaping that. Well, there's 2 things there. I guess I could expand on this a little bit more. Yes, Avery did spin out of that. I'm pretty sure Langane would have been perfectly happy with just tackling that guy because he got beat. Right. Langane was with him, although he's behind him, and so maybe there was a little bit of an assist there that maybe didn't get called. But I'll need to see another angle, please. You're seeing really no panic anymore. And I use the word panic. Maybe that's not the most fair to Avery, but I think he was a little bit too quick to leave the pocket. Wasn't trusting his offensive line enough. Too much happy feet. Wanted to go make a play on the run. And I think that did affect the passing game. Now, Avery has done a really good job of keeping his eyes down the field. allowing the pocket to do its thing. And when he does have to scramble, or when he did get out of that sack against West Virginia, he got his eyes right back down the field, and Ty Bowman deserves a ton of credit for noticing what was taking place, and West Virginia kind of quitting on the play a little bit, and he got himself in space so where he could be wide open, make a catch, get that first down, and ever since that play, it was pretty much all Cats. Avery, his accuracy is so much better. Not saying it was like completely off, but the downfield throwing, so much better.
He was high with so many of his throws through the first handful of games. What he threw for that first touchdown the other night, literally my Twitter account was one sentence. What a throw. Because that was so dead on, perfect, in stride, perfect angle. Didn't have to wait on it at all. It was laid in there perfectly.
The most impressive play I think I've seen from Avery so far in his career was in the West Virginia game. And listen, don't get me wrong. Loved the downfield throw, great play to Jaden Jackson. The play before that was really good to Jaden. DJ Giddens on the wheel route, making that adjustment, coming inside and beating that linebacker for a 50-plus yard play that I still feel like he got in, but he was down at the 1 yard line. Amazing play by both Avery and DJ to make that happen. The run game was getting stopped, and K-State proved that, all right, you want to try to make us one-dimensional? We'll kill you in this area of the game now. We're that much better. The play to now I'm blanking on is Oakley, right? The first touchdown to a tight end was to Oakley.
Yes.
That was a tight window. That had to be, if it was maybe a half second later, that pick it's intercepted. So Avery had to be perfect on that, and he was. But the touchdown pass to Will Ancio. A couple of things happen here. One, it's really good coverage from West Virginia. I probably watched this play 10 times over. And I didn't notice this at first, but West Virginia had this covered pretty well. Also, here comes a blitz. It looks like on his blind side, maybe K-State's getting beat a little bit, but then right up the middle, right in his face, here comes a blitzer. Avery backpedals, but it's more to his 5 o'clock, not 6 o'clock, but 5 o'clock. Never took his eyes downfield. Never really got out of his ready-to-pass stance. Right. And delivered an ace to Will Ancio. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a ton of differences from Avery in his passing game. I know Jalen Daniels had a great game against Houston. He's been better his last couple of games. And I talked to a number of KU beat writers and media members at Big 12 Media Days, just kind of, hey, Sunflower Showdown week. This is a pretty big one, isn't it? Got away with one last year, huh? 15 straight. And we're just talking about KU as like, yeah, maybe not a whole lot of optimism from that media, but like with Jalen Daniels, if it's there was any time they wanted to play K-State, it's probably right now because he's playing his best football. Right now, no doubt, all in, best football versus best football. Right now, it's clearly Avery Johnson. Mm-hmm. So, what a game this is going to be on Saturday. We'll break down some more keys a little bit later on. But I just wanted to give a few moments to Avery in that passing game and just talk. Really, you got to give credit to the offense because of what the running game's been able to do has really opened things up for a lot of people. Just because West Virginia shut that down, though, they proved so much that, all right, now we're just going to put up almost 300 on you guys. Try to stop this. KU secondary is interesting with Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson, but they're pretty banged up at the safety position. So that's going to definitely be a key. We'll have more of those with the defense and the offense coming up at 4:40. That'll be the offense, defense at 5:40. But when we come back, let's preview the KU Jayhawks with Henry Greenstein. I caught up with him at Big 12 Media Days. He's from the Lawrence Journal-World, and you'll hear that next on The Game.
Miss part of the show?
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Really? Check it out on demand at 1350kman.com. You're listening to The Game on News Radio KMAN.
I'm loving this tweet from Heartland College Sports. Shout out to him. It's been 5,836 days since the Kansas Jayhawks have beaten K-State in football. So, do the quick math like Troy would. He would tell you that that game was played on November 1st of 2008 at Memorial Stadium. Mm-hmm. And KU won that game 52-21. They put out a tweet listing the last time Kansas beat K-State, this happened. So I may sprinkle these out through the whole show here. Avery Now, this is actually not in the list, but I'm going to add this. Avery Johnson was 3 years old.
Damn.
Fun fact. Avery will be turning 20 years old the night of the Houston game.
Uh-huh.
So next week. So 9 days. Let's do a couple more here. Patrick Mahomes was 13 years old. And Tom Brady had only won 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And he was out for the season with a torn ACL.
The year that he basically suffered that at Arrowhead. Back when it was still known as Arrowhead.
That was 2008.
Yeah, Bernard Pollard. Bernard Pollard hit him low.
Yeah,
and that's how the Brady rule is. You mentioned November 1st, so yeah, that would have been the day before his 4th birthday.
All right, let's hear from Henry Greenstein. He's the sports editor of the Lawrence Journal-World as we preview the Kansas Jayhawks, who are 2-5 on the season. And I caught up with Henry yesterday at Big 12 Media Days. What's been the pros and the cons of, for one season, not having home games in Lawrence and going over to Kansas City and Arrowhead and to Children's Mercy to cover home games?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it is not a huge deal. Obviously, sometimes when you get out of a night game, you hope you can get back home a little more quickly than having to drive 45 minutes, but it's not too bad at all. And I think, from the perspective of the players and from the perspective of recruits, it's certainly a bonus in some ways. And they'll be back to playing in a new-look stadium by this point next year, and I think everyone's excited to see how that turns out as well.
Well, KU coming off a blowout win over Houston, but before that, just one prior win. That was against Lindenwood. Now, granted, tougher non-con. That was probably expected with Illinois and UNLV. And then a lot of close losses in the fourth quarter to Big 12 opponents. Is that the common denominator? Has it been coming down to the fourth quarter in these losses and KU's just not able to hang on?
Yeah, in some sense, but you can also take a look at the final 2 minutes of the first half. One of the most remarkable stats about KU football this year is in the final 2 minutes of the first half, they have against FBS opponents, they have thus far been outscored 45-0. They have not managed to score a 2-minute drill at any point this season, and they have repeatedly taken punishment in those same windows. So I've been workshopping a weird take that this could be KU's most important coin toss of the season, because if K-State's able to defer to the second half and score in that 2-minute warning, it's kind of hard to imagine that with like scores on either side of the half, K would be able to bounce back from that. But besides that, yeah, the fourth quarter has been troublesome as well, especially dating back to the West Virginia game. You think about that one. They were up 28-17 with like 5 minutes to go and allowed back-to-back touchdown drives. And that's not the only time they've had an experience like that. They couldn't stop TCU in the fourth quarter. And at Arizona State, it finally looked like KU's offense was clicking in the way everyone had hoped it would. But that was just as quickly canceled out by giving up like a back-to-back touchdown drives again, this time mostly via the run of all things in a 2-minute drill down in Tempe. So now, though, after Houston, there's a lot more reason for optimism in the KU camp. Jalen Daniels is finally looking like the kind of player he was supposed to be throughout the entire season. His connections with his receivers seem much smoother and much more in line with what we saw from them in previous years. And on the whole, I mean, KU is hitting K-State at the right time. They just had the bye week before Houston, too, so they're getting a little healthier as well.
I'm glad you brought up Jalen Daniels, because if there were two things, just the response from KU fans in those early losses, maybe even the first one, Illinois, that had been, Jalen Daniels was turning over the football, maybe some not so great decisions. And you have a new offensive coordinator in Jeff Grimes, and that's been a common complaint as well. So you said Jalen Daniels has been better. He's playing better football. What's right now the story on Jeff Grimes? Are fans a little bit happier, or is it kind of the same right now with what his status is with the fans?
Yeah, I mean, from the fans' perspective, it's hard to negate a bad first impression, obviously, and I feel like that Illinois game was a rough first impression for Jeff Grimes. I mean, everyone pointed to a a 2nd and 3 situation where they took a pair of deep shots when they were running the ball super well, ended up getting nothing from that drive. And overall in that game, and I wrote about this at the time, it didn't feel like they were aggressive when they needed to be aggressive. And then it didn't feel like they were passive when they needed to be passive. Since then, though, I think Grimes has done a much better job calibrating his play calling to the game situation and the game script. And I think that Jalen Daniels has made him look a lot better, too. I think they've kind of de-emphasized certain play concepts that weren't working super well. They've de-emphasized the jet motion a little bit. They've done fewer bubble screens. That was a big criticism of Grimes that fans are making too. Too many screens. You haven't seen as many screens in recent weeks. They've done a really good job mixing in some reverses off the speed option. The speed option was already a really good play concept for them, but with reverses coming out of that look, it makes it harder for the defense to all funnel in one direction. And the reverse to Luke Grimm in particular has been one of KU's best plays, and I think Jeff Grimes deserves a lot of credit for finding kind of a new thing in that area that worked well for them. The challenge against K-State will be being able to find an innovation that works as well as the Torrey Laughlin option did last year in the Sunflower Showdown. Because I feel that with how successful K-State's run defense has been, this is not going to be a Devin Neal cakewalk in the Sunflower Showdown.
Yeah, he had a really good game last year against K-State, and that was a game that K-State probably should have lost. I was there. I was super nervous. K-State got some monster breaks in that game and was able to escape Lawrence with its 15th straight victory. You touched on a couple of players, but let's just take a look quickly at the rest of the offense and who, outside of Devin Neal, still a stud, of course, at running back, Jalen Daniels, who else have been, key pieces to the offense.
Yeah, I mentioned Luke Grimm. He's a really good route runner. He's also pretty elusive as well, and he probably has the best connection with Jalen Daniels of any of the receivers, at least consistently throughout this year. And one thing about Grimm is, last year when Daniels missed all but 3 games, Grimm saw his numbers go way down because he didn't have quite that same connection with Jason Bean, but he's had a bit of I guess you could say a redemptive year in his senior season, and he's going to be a tough guy for K-State to keep track of. They like to scheme him in ways to give him the ball in a lot of different areas. Besides that, the main name that would stand out in terms of offensive playmakers would be Daniel Highshaw, who's the counterpart to Devin Neal in the backfield. But there's some question as to whether he'll actually play in this game after he exited the Houston one with an injury. Didn't play in the second half, as I recall. And that's tough for Highshaw, who's a guy who's dealt with injuries throughout his career. He already missed the UNLV game earlier this season due to a combination of illness and injury. And as Neal himself has said, as Jeff Grimes has said, part of what allows Neal to be effective is that he can share the load with someone like Highshaw. And part of why KU arguably lost that UNLV game was because they didn't have the complement in that way. And so it'll be an even harder challenge for KU if they have to, say, miss Highshaw and give more carries to the likes of Savion Morrison or the true freshman Harry Stewart in his place.
Henry Greenstein is our guest. He's from the Lawrence Journal-World. All right, now to the defense. I think it starts with the secondary if you're a K-State fan, because even though Avery's been better at throwing the football, he's actually been much better, getting a lot more from the wide receivers. 8 touchdown passes to tight ends this year, which is just crazy, but maybe a tougher secondary to face when you talk about Mello Dotson and Kobe Bryant. How well are they playing this year?
Yeah, those guys have been great, and they've been under a bit more pressure. Their numbers might not look quite as good in terms of PFF grades and whatnot. They've been, because the pressure up front has not necessarily been making their jobs easy. KU has not been very good at getting after the quarterback, particularly when it doesn't bring the blitz. Brian Borwa is not a very blitz-heavy guy. He's much more about running a base defense and running it in a disciplined and strong fashion. But against Houston, they blitzed more than basically they ever have. I don't know if they can do that again against K-State, just dealing with a higher quality of lineman and blocker, and also because they just put it on tape last week, they are willing to blitz more. But I guess it'll at least make Conor Riley and company think a little bit more about how they want to handle that. But on the whole, Kobe and Mello have continued to excel. I mean, Kobe Bryant won a million National Player of the Week honors for getting 3 picks against Houston. And in some ways, they're fulfilling what Kobe said prior to the season, which is now that Mello's got his own reputation, he said, I don't know who they're going to target. So it's kind of been teams forced to distribute things between them. And when they're both healthy, that's a big boon to KU.
The other player I want to ask about is, for K-State, Brendan Mott has been an absolute stud. He leads the league, I think, still in sacks. Big tackles for loss guy. He's good against the run. I think KU has a standout like that to me. That's J.B. Brown. I think he leads the team in both sacks and in tackles for loss this year. How good is he?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, he's like a missile out there at linebacker in some ways. And by the way, Jeff Grimes had a lot of nice things to say about Brendan Mott in his press conference, so go check that out. But as for Brown, he's had a greater understanding of scheme this year. Last year, his coaches kind of referred to him as a see-ball, get-ball guy, but he has a greater awareness of how he sort of fits into the bigger picture of the defense this year. I think that's really helped him pick his spots. And yeah, I mean, when Brian Borwin calls a blitz, it is very often with J.P. Brown because of his speed in that way, his pursuit. It makes him an extremely effective blitzer. The problem is that can only be so effective if KU doesn't get pressure with defensive ends like Dean Miller and Jeremy Robinson as well to make Brown's job a little easier.
All right, as we wind down here, maybe you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I just want to take a look at KU as a whole and what is the biggest strength this year? What's been the biggest weakness this year, you think?
Oh, gosh. Well, the biggest weakness, one that comes to mind is what I mentioned earlier, just execution in the final 2 minutes of the first half and the second half. They haven't been good in that situational stuff, which is odd because they work it super often, but it just hasn't worked out for them. Another weakness that's kind of emerging now, or something that could be a weakness but we haven't totally gotten to see it yet, is depth in the back of the secondary. KU has lost, first of all, it moved one of its safeties to sort of a hybrid safety linebacker position this year, which has worked out pretty well, but obviously that takes one person off your top line safety thing, and then they lost 3 more safeties to injury. So in the last game, safeties Taylor Davis and Caleb Purdy combined for 69 snaps. They previously had 66 total snaps in their career before that. So it's a redshirt freshman and a redshirt sophomore who have been buried in the depth chart and are now tasked with a very high responsibility. To me, I would not be surprised to see K-State take maybe more deep shots than you're used to try to take advantage of those guys. Obviously, having Kobe and Mello makes it a little harder to do that with confidence. But I just feel like Taylor Davis and Caleb Purdy haven't been tested down the field quite that much yet, and that could potentially be a weakness. Another thing is just stopping quarterback runs, which obviously doesn't bode well for KU heading into this game. Over the last 2 years, I can't tell you how many times a quarterback has been a leading rusher for a KU opponent, and I would not be surprised if that happens again with Avery Johnson. But on the other hand, they've heard about it so much, they've put so much of an emphasis on being more disciplined in rush lanes. So whether it's designed runs or scrambles, I do think there's a chance KU maybe rises to the occasion this week in that particular weakness area.
It's very interesting because K-State, KU, they're actually pretty similar in a lot of numbers. Just the difference has been K-State has figured out ways to win, and they've done so in blowout fashion, and KU has struggled to, obviously win a bunch of games. So other than Highshaw, any other big – you mentioned a couple, but any other big injuries that we need to talk about?
Yeah, the 3 safeties I mentioned, those are Mason Ellis, who might play but doesn't really sound like it, and then Jalen and Devin Dye, who are brothers at safety. The big player who's back now for KU is Cornell Wheeler, the leader of their defense. He missed several games. I think he only missed TCU and Arizona State, but last game they were kind of working him in a rotational role. But he's the lone defensive captain, been a big breakout player this year. He's the great communicator defensively, and he kind of gets everything done for them on that side of the ball. So having him back at full strength this week will be incredibly critical going into a place like a hostile environment, but also a team that has such good a running game.
All right, Henry, really appreciate it. Good stuff with the Lawrence Journal-World, and appreciate your time here on Power Cat Game Day. We'll see you at the game on Saturday.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's get a big thanks to Henry Greenstein from the Lawrence Journal-World stopping by and talking about the Kansas Jayhawks. All right, quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear from offensive coordinator Conor Riley, my offensive keys for the Cats against KU. Maybe we'll squeeze in a little Meet the Wildcats as well. Next, the game.
Your home for K-State Sports.
Beasley holds, looks, throws over the middle, pass, caught Morgan at the 5, Quincy Morgan, touchdown! Kansas State and the Wildcats take the lead!
This is The Game on News Radio, KMAN.
All right, so looking back at the last game, what did Avery do so good as a passer that you liked?
Well, there's quite a few things that he did really well. I think he got through his progressions extremely well. I thought that he saw the coverage pre-snap. I thought that he played very fast, and then throughout the course of the game, especially on that 4th down, and that defensive end got a little bit of a jump on Andrew Leingang. For him to have the ability to keep the play alive, keep his eyes downfield was just a fantastic job, and I thought he was extremely accurate. As you guys looked, there were quite a few times on 3rd downs that we threw under the chains, And it's that accuracy that allows us to be more efficient with the run after the catch.
The Kansas defensive backs are probably some of the best in the Big 12. What do you see from, I guess, that secondary and those cornerbacks in particular?
Well, the number one thing is they're experienced, and I know that Coach has talked about it, is you look at some of the faces back there and you're like, holy cow, we've been playing these guys for quite a long time. And not only from their athleticism, not only from the ability standpoint, because they are an extremely talented group, but you look at the experience that they have. You know, they've seen route patterns before. They have the ability to do some things that maybe typical defensive backs aren't able to do, just because of that experience, because of the amount of football that they played. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that coaching staff. I think they do a phenomenal job. And it's just not the defensive backs. It's the entirety of their defense, I think, is going to present quite the challenge for us come Saturday night.
I know we've talked about this before, but you got 4 tight ends now who have caught multiple touchdown passes this season. How far down have you had to, look into your bag of tricks to pull that out, or has it been pretty easy to get them looks?
Well, it's I think it's a credit a little bit in some situations that, when you have the guys in the backfield that you have, it creates opportunities. It creates opportunities within the play-action game, and it creates opportunities quite often for those tight ends, especially when you look, we're getting into the red zone. When we get into the red zone, we want to have that efficiency. You can see I don't think it's any big secret. That's where a lot of their productivity is coming. So the fact of that, that there's multiple, I can't say that was by design, that, we're all smart enough coaches to say that we need this guy to get to, this guy to get to, this guy to get to. It's about a group of young men who buy into one another and who capitalize on the moments that they have. One of the coolest moments of that game is when Will made that touchdown reception, and you look at that throw that Avery made on that particular play. That was a phenomenal throw, got flushed out. And but look at the reaction of Garrett Oakley and Will Swanson, and that tells you a lot about this football team, and it tells you a lot about that position group. And I thought it was awesome. Maybe you guys didn't see it. Maybe it's just something on our film, but it's something that we most definitely pointed out.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. That's Conor Riley, K-State offensive coordinator. I'm just going to give you a handful of keys that I think it's big for the K-State offense. Let's start with Avery passing the football. Will the passing game be consistent? We know that 3 players on the KU do 2 deep at the safety position. They're going to be out, so how vulnerable are those guys? I expect K-State to, of course, take some deep shots. It depends on, of course, well, maybe it doesn't depend so much, because we saw K-State take a deep shot against the zone defense. Man-to-man against Colorado. Zone was against West Virginia, and it played out successfully. So the big play is a factor against KU. They've been much better in the passing game with that. Avery running the football is big as well, because the last 2 games, minus 15 yards rushing for Avery. Hasn't been super necessary. Maybe a little cautious with him against West Virginia. But KU against running quarterbacks, 60 carries, 333 yards, 83 yards per game, 6 yards a carry. And then the fourth quarter. In the KU 5 losses, KU is allowing 12.6 points in the fourth quarter. In their losses, they have led in every fourth quarter, and they blew it. K-State's averaging 12 points in the fourth quarter in all games.
Mistakes?
I'm sorry about that.
Speaking of mistakes, errors, and a lack of confidence. That's what I see from KU, especially in fourth quarters.
And by the way, if KU's getting outscored 45-0 in the final 2 minutes of their games this year, let's go get that last-minute score there before we head into the locker room.
Right.
All right, before we wrap up the hour, let's do a Meet the Wildcats. This is one of my favorites we've done. Let's hear from Jordan Riley, K-State safety.
Let's meet the Wildcats with Jordan Riley. So, favorite athlete growing up?
Mike Vick. Definitely, that's my boy. I love him.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Was it always a football player or maybe a firefighter or something?
No, I wanted to be a WWE wrestler. I'm not going to lie. I used to think it was real until, got a big realization that it wasn't.
Favorite wrestler?
Ultimate Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
I was in person when he went into the Hall of Fame, and he died like 2 days later.
I know, which is sad, yeah. But no, Ultimate Warrior is my guy. I just love his energy. Every time he comes to the ring, he's just coming out with 1,000%.
Does pineapple go on pizza?
I don't need pizza. Don't like it at all.
Really?
Yeah, didn't eat it growing up. Neither did my mom. We're not really pizza people. So I couldn't even tell you if it does, if it doesn't.
So is there anything you like that maybe most people don't then?
Pig feet. A lot of people don't like it. They say it's nasty, but I love pig feet.
Music guilty pleasure?
Probably Caribbean music. I love Caribbean music, all types. The Pan-African movement is kind of what I've been into recently, so all music just relating to that and stuff.
Most used app on your phone?
TikTok.
Favorite TV show of all time?
It's either Dexter or Johnny Test.
Big pet peeve? Do you have one?
Pet peeve? Not really. I just don't like repeating myself, I would say. I mean, I feel like, but at the same time, like, people say I talk too fast, so that's another thing, but I don't really like repeating myself.
Favorite holiday?
Black History Month.
What movie can you quote word for word?
Shot Us. I don't know if you ever heard of it,
No.
but it's a movie. It's staged in Jamaica. It's basically like a Black Hood movie. Either Shot Us or Belly, either one of them. Two of my favorite movies.
Do you have any bad habits?
I got a sugary tooth, I would say, sweet tooth. I love popsicles, muffins, and Capri Suns. I go through them boxes on boxes. It's a pretty bad habit, but Capri Suns.
It's me with popsicles. I can clean out a box in
I'm
an
telling
afternoon.
you, literally, I clean out. I got my girlfriend had got me popsicles for my camp gift, and I think I ate them all in 2 days. Yeah.
Last one. Who wins the Super Bowl this year?
The Eagles. Yes, sir. The Philadelphia Eagles. Absolutely.
All right, Jordan, best of luck tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like Jordan Riley.
Bold prediction at the end there.
Yeah. Well, we did record that before the season started.
Oh, okay.
I think we need to add the Ultimate Warrior theme song to the Third Down playlist. I could tell at West Virginia, whoever's ever running the music, big pro wrestling fan. I heard Stone Cold. I heard the NWO. Wyatt Family, which is kind of, I don't think that's really stadium music. There was another one I heard. It was just kind of all over the place, but a lot of wrestling music. Also at Kauffman Stadium, there's a ton played as well. All right, hour two coming up next. We'll speak with former Cat Curry Sexton next on The Game.